Hi, today we're going to be talking about the properties of parallelograms. Let's get started. So parallelograms are quadrilaterals, so four-sided polygons, which have two pairs of parallel sides. Okay, so let's look at this diagram here. This is a parallelogram, and as you realize, this side is parallel to this side, and this side is parallel to this side. So there's two pairs of parallel sides for this parallelogram. Another property about parallelograms is that this side is congruent to this side, and this side is congruent to this side. So any two lines that are parallel in a parallelogram are congruent as well. Also, the opposite angles in a parallelogram are congruent, so these two angles are congruent and these two angles are congruent. Another really nice properties about a parallelogram is when you draw the diagonals. So when you draw the diagonals, it basically splits it in half. So for example, this diagonal compared with this point, so basically this length right here is congruent to this length right here, and this length right here is congruent to this length right here. Okay? Great. So now let's look at a very specific type of parallelogram, which is called the rhombus. Okay? So the rhombus has all the things of a parallelogram. It has two parallel sides, which are congruent to each other. It also has the property where the diagonals, when cut, are congruent. The interesting thing about a rhombus is that all four sides are congruent, and the thing I really like about the rhombus is when you draw the diagonals, it forms right angles. So the diagonals are perpendicular to each other. Okay? Now let's look at another specific type of parallelogram, which is called the rectangle. Okay, so the rectangle is where all of the four vertices join in 90-degree angle. So all of the lines or all of the sides are perpendicular to the next side. So the thing about a rectangle that makes it really interesting and stand out among the parallelograms is the fact that when you draw the two diagonals, they form four congruent parts. So it's not just this is congruent to this, it's this part is congruent to this part, which is congruent to this part, which is congruent to this part. So all four segments formed by the diagonals are congruent to each other. The last one is a square. Now the square is a specific type of parallelogram, but the thing is it's also a specific type of rhombus and rectangle. So basically it's like a hybrid of everything. So not only are the diagonals perpendicular, they also form congruent segments. Okay? And to make this really clear, I've drawn a Venn diagram. Basically, in this big circle, there's the parallelogram. Inside the circle, there's rectangles, and there's rhombuses. The intersection between these two, which are the intersection between the rectangles and the rhombuses, are the squares. Okay, so I hope that helped, and I hope to see you soon.